This is the first proposed change. Best suggestion we saw from the community? Really? And we agree completely that it should be a good change for a few reasons. So it's a nerf. It's a nerf. But I agree with it for the same reasons that they have. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but I can understand why they will want to change this. Alright. In ZVP, this type of change will help Protoss against early mid-game Ravager pushes while on defense. Now, the big weakness of Protoss players is holding a third base against Ravager pushes. With the nerf to the Mothership Core, you see this trend of nerfs? That's kind of what happens after an expansion. But after the nerf to the Mothership Core, Protoss struggled to defend their third bases against concerted Ravager pushes. Now, this isn't that big a deal. In my experience in ZVP, but it'll allow Protoss players to focus a little bit more on tech. I'm sure they want to see more disruptors and more just like warp prisms and stargates and tempests and shit like that. And that's what they're trying to do, rather than make people go for a bunch of gateway units to try to defend early on. So this is a buff to Toss. This is a buff because Protoss has a very small amount of biological units as well. That's a pretty big buff to Toss in ZVP. In ZVT, with the Ravager shots nerfed heavily against mechanical units like siege tanks, try out the siege tank mode pickup removal. Yes, this is what I was talking about the other day. You cannot nerf siege tank pickup in TVT without it also affecting the other matchups. ZVP, siege tank pickup is not that big a deal, but ZVT, it really kind of is. And if you remove that ability, siege tanks would be almost entirely useless against Ravagers and other like early game Mazarg units. So that's important. That's important to think about. And obviously they've thought about that. I went over that as well. Like, you can't just remove siege tank pickup without it majorly affecting ZVT as well. And they're addressing this here. I didn't actually expect this with the Ravager change. You know what? Should I put this up while I'm playing? Alright. You know what? What I'm gonna do first is, while I'm talking about these changes, I'm going to, one second. Dun, 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 dun. Here, does this lend me a little bit more credibility? If I put this in your face? There, ta-da! Top 100 GM. Anyways. That's for credibility's sake, to an extent. Especially as Zerg. Alright. So, in ZVZ there will be no change, which makes sense. Ravagers are a pretty interesting unit. And if you nerf the Ravager, in ZVZ, in general, we're gonna see Lurker Turtles. We're gonna see Lurker Turtles everywhere. That's what's going to happen. Because the Ravager is the only mid-game unit that can actually deal with the Lurker. Thank you, Kerplow. Welcome back 7 months in a row. Thanks for that. But yeah. Do you want to see Lurker Turtles? Because that's how you get Lurker Turtles. The stronger the Lurker is, the more likely ZVZ is going to end up a stalemate past the mid-game. And right now, Ravagers are the only thing that kind of break that stalemate. Mutas are okay, but they're not that great at it. Because you can just throw up a bunch of Spore Crawlers and then suddenly Mutas can't do shit. So it doesn't affect ZVZ, that's fine. Roach Ravager is kind of interesting as well. A lot more interesting than Roach versus Roach. Liberator ability range reduced by 1, but range is regained with the upgrade. So, mostly for ZVT. Now, there are two different parts of this. This is two different things. One, this is going to reduce the early game strength of Liberators, which allows the ability for Zerg players to go for a lot of different things. What I think this is the biggest thing for, what they want to see in ZVT, but they're not saying it, is Lurkers. Like, no one goes Lurkers right now in ZVT. And a lot of the reason is because you get like 5-6 Liberators, it can just zone out Lurkers super easy. This might give a little bit more ability to go Lurkers in ZVT without just going straight towards Ultralists. But we'll see. I just want to play. I'm gonna play Lurkers a little bit more. It's not gonna make a huge difference. It's one range. It's not like a massive deal, but anything helps. And I want to go Lurkers more in ZVT, but they're just not that good right now. Part of the reason they're not that good as well is because Liberators counter Lurkers and Ultralisk. So you go Lurkers, you can't transition into that endgame unit, the Ultralisk, and that is part of the problem. But I'm gonna play more Lurkers. Is this balanced test map live, by the way? I don't think it's live, because I would play against you guys on the balanced test map, but I don't think so. Now, here's the big one. Medivacs can't pick up tanks in siege mode. Now, this is a very dramatic change. This pretty much... Oh, thank you, Solar Swordsman. Welcome back 8 months in a row. This is a big deal. There's a lot of aspects to this. One, this is a big thing that they added with Legacy of the Void, and I can see why they didn't want to remove it. And I'm surprised they're even considering removing it outright. But... now, before anything else, the reason the Medivac tank drop is so good, what am I trying to say here? Is because in TVT, it makes it almost impossible to ever be out of position. In general, it makes it very difficult to be out of position with your tanks. There is no risk, because you can just pick up your tanks, and then you just go fly over wherever. You boost at light speed over to another location. Bam, you plop your tanks down. There you go. TVT ends in like 3 seconds. Other matchups, they kind of suffer as well. So they make for cool short-term micro, but in long-term battles, they're they take away a lot of the potential counterplay. I hear this word used a lot. I don't like using the word, but counterplay against Medivac siege tanks is very difficult because they move so quickly and there's almost nothing you can do about it. So they're trying to remove that, and I like that. TVT in Heart of the Swarm I thought was one of the best matchups of all of them because of the positioning of tanks and moving around and all of that. So... Now we got some big changes here coming up as well. But this is the idea I had. I had like a half idea. I had a half idea that wouldn't completely remove it, but would actually reduce the effectiveness. I thought maybe you could make every time you picked up a siege tank, it would have a cooldown till it could be picked up again. Maybe whenever you pick up a siege tank, you can't drop that siege tank down for 20 seconds. Or... it would cost the Medivac 50 energy to pick up a siege tank or something like that. So that way you could only do it so many times, and it would reduce the effectiveness of the rest of your army. This was my middle-of-the-road idea, which I thought was pretty good. But if they want to just go with the outright remove it, I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with that too. Like... and of course... Now we have the tie-in here. Siege tank damage increased from 35, 50 versus armored, to 40, 60 versus armored. I'm trying to think of, like, this will make them incredibly good against, like, Lings and Banelings. It'll make them slightly better against Ultralisks and slightly better against Stalkers. I'm trying to think. Adepts have 160. Huh. There's a lot of relationships here. They already talk about They want Marines to still be a big part of the matchup, and they will be. This will make them incredibly good before Combat Shields is finished. It'll bring them to 5 HP, which is one-shottable by other Marines. So this is a big deal as well. New players are not going to like this. I'm just going to say right now, the amount of games I see end below, like, Platinum League because one person walks into siege tanks and thinks they can fight. Oh, it's going to get way worse. I'm sorry, like, gold, silver, and bronze players. You're going to hate siege tanks even more. But players above that level usually counterplay and all that. But get wrecked, noobs. That's going to be hilarious. But, alright. Well, these are, the Roach Ravager thing, I didn't think about that being a change, like the Ravager idea here, and the Liberator idea. I can see why they made that change, though, so. I like it. I want TVT back. Alright, I want TVT. It's alright. TVT in Heart of the Storm was beautiful. I don't think the Medivac Siege Tank is more interesting than a really high damage, low mobility unit. I think... I like this a lot. I actually do like this. The more I think about all of this, the more I like it. They're reducing the ability of 1 second to make a difference in a battle, and instead, the 30, 45, 60 seconds leading up to a fight. Anything that makes the game more drawn out and forces you to get into a position and prepare and outthink your opponent several seconds in advance makes for more entertaining games. There are too many games that, in Legacy of the Void, just end in like 2 seconds because a disruptor hit goes off, or the siege tanks drop down 1 second in time. But yeah, if we could get another link to this for those people that want to read it over themselves. But I like it. I actually like everything. Usually I'm like, one of these things, not so big on it. I like everything. Huh. I'm surprised they're actually going with the hardcore just remove it, but I like it. Okay. But yeah. Hopefully, if you have any questions on what effects some things might have, you guys can ask me in the chat if you're into that.